our polar bears here with us. Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. We'd now like to consider action on our closed session items. Mr. George.
I move to propose non-renewal of Lena Harris term employment contract at the end of the contract year and to authorize the superintendent or his designee to notify Ms. Harris in accordance with applicable law and policy and to specify that the hearing, if any, concerning the proposed non-renewal of Ms. Harris's term employment contract be conducted before an independent hearing examiner appointed by the Commissioner of Education in accordance with policy DFBB.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. George and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thanks for the clarification. Okay, who's next?
Yes, Madam President. I move that the board approve the recommendation to rescind probationary employment contracts for the 2015-16 contract year of specified certified employees previously approved on April 10th, 2015, as contained in the list provided under separate cover, and to approve probationary employment contracts for the 2015-16 contract year of specified certified employees as indicated on the revised list approved or provided under separate cover.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Burdine and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? We apologize for the incorrect list the first time. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Mrs. Bailey.
Yes, I move to appoint Stephanie Williams to the position of Director of Teacher Development.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Bailey and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, please vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion's unanimous. Mrs. Bailey.
Yes, I move to terminate Dana Rose probationary employment contract at the end of the 2014-15 contract term in the best interest of the district and to authorize the superintendent or his designee to notify Ms. Rowe of this action in accordance with applicable law and policy.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Bailey and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? Hearing none, please vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Mrs. Tossan.
Yes, Madam President. I move that the board approve the recommendation to rescind term employment contracts for the 2015-16 contract year of specified certified employees previously approved on April 20th, 2015, as contained in the list provided under separate cover, and to approve term employment contracts for the 2015-16 contract year of specified certified employees as indicated on the revised list provided under separate cover.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Tossan and a second by Mr. Rice. Do we have discussion? Again, we apologize for the incorrect list the first time. Hearing none, then let's vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Is that all of them? Lost track, I'm sorry. All right. That concludes our action on closed session items. Now we're ready to review the rest of the agenda items that will be considered next week. So we're on page 33 of our agenda. The first item is the proposed compensation proposal for 2015-16. I feel like we kind of went over this already.
It's been reviewed very thoroughly in the budget update. Are there any other questions?
Do we have any other questions on the compensation proposal? It's about an average 2% increase. And what was the total cost, Mr. Bassett? Do you remember? I was just going to write that down. 3.5? No. It's all right. You can think
9
about
million.
that and come back to it. Next, we have the resolutions. The first resolution was a pilot program for the alternate appraisal system for teachers and principals. Do we have any questions or comments on that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mrs. Tassan.
How were the campuses chosen for the pilot program? I mean, was there a...
Was there a method to the madness?
Right.
Of
Was there a
course
method
there
to the
was.
madness?
Mrs. Dr. Hill, thank you.
There was, of course, a method to the madness.
I knew there was.
Chose a Title I feeder pattern and a non-Title I feeder pattern, as this is a pilot that we are doing in our district. And we felt that the additional time, because the model is built around increased observation and teacher growth, and we felt that that would be a very good place to pilot it in our Title I feeder, and Willow Ridge is our only Title I high school. And we wanted to be able to look at the implementation there with a feeder that did not have as many Title I schools or no Title I schools.
So why do we think that these programs are better than what we're implementing now? Or what about them are?
The state is moving to a new model, not next year, but the next year. So everyone will be moving that direction. And our district chose to be in the pilot group because we want to focus on being a learning organization and focus on improved instructional practices and increased instructional leadership as we work on our managed curriculum.
I would also add the real value is this is a developmental system. It's not a 1 through 5 rating. It is truly, you're on a continuum, and you do more observations, and you're able. It's a more meaningful feedback, and it's a growth model. It's designed to set the exemplar, and the teachers are always moving along the continuum.
Okay, that's that's good to know. And the reason I asked that is because I noticed in the resolution that we're required to either adopt a system that is developed by the commissioner or a locally developed appraisal process is what I'm reading. So we don't have to do this, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's why I asked the question. I
Right.
didn't know, I mean, I assume we believe that it to be better, but that's why I asked the
Definitely
question.
better than PDOS. And having worked with this system in another form, I think it's far superior, and I think it'll serve our needs very well. Now, it is moving cheese, and it's a big,
That's a big
it's going
block
to
of
be
cheese.
very different, but it's going to be a very strong system.
Okay, thank you.
It will prepare our staff for the direction the state's moving to also.
Okay,
We'll just be a little ahead of the game in those 2 feeders.
yeah, that's good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we feel we have the capacity for one more big change.
Well, I think, honestly, we've considered that, and the approach we've determined is we can take the whole district as all as one big change, and we're all learning, or we can bring a couple of schools up, and we can develop through our HR systems and through the principals. We're kind of setting then our own model, within internal model to follow, so the others can learn and grow.
And I guess it's sort of a pilot without having to do everything at once. You have a better chance. I'm just mentioning the elephant, that's all.
In our new software for teacher appraisal and data and so forth, they are working closely with the state to be able to support a developmental teacher evaluation appraisal system. So it also gives us an opportunity to have some schools working within that system.
And that's great, and I think that developmental style is much, much better. I'm just, know that we have so many things going on, and this is just another change, another thing we have to do differently, and so you have to train and you have to learn, and it's just a lot. So I'm just recognizing that, and you guys are all for it. I'm all for it too. I'm just letting you know that I realize it's another big thing that's changing. So, all right. Any other questions on that? Next resolution has to do with Senate Bill 149, the graduation committees. Do we have, that's been signed now by Governor Abbott, so do we have any questions about this? Mrs. Tossan is nodding her head like, go ahead.
I have one question and just one comment. So I noticed at the end of page 43 in our board book that we say we anticipate holding all applicable IGC meetings prior to graduation. So why would we not do that? I mean, it says we anticipate doing that. I would assume we would want to do that for all of our kids so that they could graduate timely.
There are some students, they have to also meet their graduation requirements. And there are some students who may not meet those until August. So there may be some later meetings. And I have a timeline. Obviously, this law was kind of signed in, and there we are. But we had been preparing, and I do have a timeline that I can share with you in this week's update. And I do have some numbers by campus that I can share with you this evening if you want those.
I think we can get those by update would be
okay.
More than adequate.
And my only comment is that in the resolution under be it resolved paragraph 1, we need to change effectively to effective.
It is.
I don't know who that should be directed to, but I'm just making
I'm
that
sorry,
comment.
I was.
You stopped paying attention.
I did, just briefly, because I noticed that the governor's name is spelled wrong, and I felt that was unfortunate, so I was fixing that.
It is unfortunate, yeah. And
what was your comment, Mrs. Thompson?
And that in paragraph 1, under be it resolved, under the resolution itself, we need to change effectively to effective.
Yes, effective immediately. Got it. Circle
That's
up. Dr. Dupree. Got it. All right. Anything else on this one? Our next item then.
Well, Madam President, I would just add, since this is a very timely issue and pending your consideration and possible vote next week, we're going to go ahead and begin this week putting things in motion with the presumption the board is agreeable that we can go. I don't know if we'll hold any meetings this week, but we're definitely going to begin forming committees and get things in motion so we're not a week behind.
All right. Is that okay with everybody? Great. All right. Excellent. So the next item then is the resolution for the Elkins High School baseball field. Do we have any questions or discussion on this? All right. Moving forward then, the letter C is the professional service agreements. We have the professional service firms and assignment for the 2014 bond projects. Do we have any questions on these? These are the geotech material testing, surveying, and commissioning. Any questions on any of this? All right, then item 2 is the bond phase 2 projects approved to the professional service firms. Is this to the outstanding architects we had, Mr. Cleaver from last month.
Ma'am.
So we have some projects assigned to them. Do we have any questions about these additions?
These descriptions, are these things expounded on somewhere? What's involved with these projects?
Yes, sir. That would be contained in our master schedule and also in the document that the Board Oversight Committee document lists each school by line, what's in each campus. Yes, sir.
So these recommended folks are responsible for all the projects listed on those campuses for the 2014?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, do we have additional questions on those? All right, continue. Then the next one is the architect assignment for the West Side Ag Barn, which is my recollection is a 2007 bond project. Is that correct, Mr. Cleaver?
Yes, ma'am.
And so we have PBK on that. Do we have questions about that?
Yes, Madam President. Is this a design that was, I don't want to say a canned design, so to speak. Was this just an existing design that we've seen otherwise, or is it going to be custom to this campus?
It's a rectangular type barn, and it's going to be expandable to accommodate future growth if needed. We vetted it with Meredith Wadasek, and it's basically a pretty standard rectangular barn with the pins and a wash bay, and the roads leading into it, the security lighting, the security cameras, and electric power and everything.
Is this just something that she was consulted on, or parents or students or anyone else asked? Or
we relied on Meredith to bring the information from her constituents.
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, do we have further questions about this one? All right. Next is the professional service contract with DBR Engineering for some electrical design work at a number of schools. And Mr. Cleaver, did I understand this is to kind of get ahead of the game here and it's
Yes.
avoid some electrical problems that we've had?
Yes, ma'am.
ongoing this year?
At Clements and Kempner and McAuliffe, that's to actually replace the bus ducts that have been failing at the other campuses, Willow Ridge and Elkins and First Colony Middle School. And then at Dulles and Willow Ridge, the scope of work is to design a system of, the district actually owns the primary transmission line, including the transformers at those areas. And so the end goal or the purpose of the project would be to have CenterPoint actually take over the ownership and maintenance of those when the work is complete. So it's a little bit different than the bus duct replacement, but it is nonetheless a large project to take that liability and put it on CenterPoint at the end of the project.
We can't just hand it to them as is?
No, ma'am.
Darn. All right. Do we have any other questions or comments about that? Okay, then we'll move on to the next one, which is the professional service contracts related to Middle School 15, another project from the 2007 bond. Do we have any questions about those professional service contracts? Or assignments, I should say, I guess, or assignments at this point.
I had no
We will
question.
delegate the authority to negotiate the contracts to Dr. Dupree. Do you have a question, Mrs.
I had no
Tassan?
question. I had a comment
Yes?
that I appreciated the criteria and evaluation weights being included. That helped me as I was reading through it. So thank you guys for that.
You're welcome, yes, ma'am.
That was a nice addition. All right. Then we'll move forward to the next. We're scrolling so fast, my pictures can't even load. It's a nice feeling. The next item is a memorandum of understanding between the City of Sugar Land and Kempner High School, or I assume the district, for landscaping at Kempner High School. Between us and the district, or in the City of Sugar Land. Okay, and I am very familiar with this location and the eyesore that this landscape feature will fix. Any comments or questions about this one? All right, then the next item is the issuance of bonds. We talked about this earlier tonight.
And we do have bond counsel present to answer any questions if needed.
Hello, Mr. Frells. Thank you for being here tonight.
And also, Ms. James, that the amount for the compensation was $12.3 million. Sorry, I didn't have that handy.
Thank you. I too thumbed through my slides. I knew there was a 3 involved. I just had the decimal point wrong. Thank you. Do we have any additional questions about the bonds? And I know that Mr. Bassett would welcome your email this week if questions come up as you're reviewing this. All right. The next item then would be, this is the setting of the date and time and place to conduct the public hearing for the tax rate and budget. We have to vote on that to set the meeting, so then we can do it at the next meeting. We can actually consider it at the next meeting. So you understand that? Okay, so it's not really. Then the actual tax rates, which is no change from the previous M&O rate. It's $1.04 would stay the same. Any questions or conversation about that? Debt service tax rate then is the next item. That would stay the same at 30 cents per $100 value. Do we have a question about that? All right. Next is item H. This is the instructional resources for 6th grade social studies and advanced placement economics. Do we have discussion? Mr. Rosenthal.
I have no comments.
Your polar bear and everything. Thank you so much. Mrs. Tassan.
I just wanted to say thank you to the team for going back and taking a look at this again. I know you guys put a lot of work into it. I know the review committee put a lot of work into it. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of Mr. Rosenthal as well. We appreciate you guys taking another look at it. And I have no other comments either.
Everybody have comments.
We do thank you very much for bringing these back to us and doing such a thorough job. And we appreciate your hard work and that of your team. So thank you very much. Let's move on to page 3 of our agenda. And this is purchasing. Mr. Fazakerly. And I appreciate that about you. All right, so the first purchasing item is the professional development for math improvement, math solutions. And do we have questions on this procurement or on this item, on this choice? I'm glad we have it too. I had a question though. Do we have, and you can send this to us or you can comment now if you know off the top of your head. You mentioned that this was being used this year. Do we have information about its effectiveness or what's happened? It talked about that you had some engagement with the group this year, but I'm wondering what the results of that were, or what you felt the results were.
We had them come through for elementary this year. We wrote number talks, which is to help children use mental math strategies to solve problems computationally. And we wrote that into our curriculum this year. So we had math solutions come in and train all our math specialists on that so that they could go back and support that implementation on their campus. And it is being utilized on the campuses. We are taking that training and delivering it more to teachers this summer, breaking it down into grade bands of K1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5, so that we can address the specific needs of those different grade levels.
And do we have any evidence that it's helping kids to learn math?
Well, we do have, because with the new TEKS, the composing and decomposing numbers, we're getting a lot of feedback that our students are able to do that in a more efficient manner. We'll have even more data when we get their district assessments back from this spring.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to hearing about that. Do we have any other questions on this one? All right, let's move on to the next item then, which is staff professional development. This is capturing kids' hearts in the Willow Ridge feeder pattern. Could someone remind us, I think I remember that we had trained all of the Willow Ridge feeder pattern employees in capturing kids' hearts, and this is sort of a catch-up for those who either weren't in that feeder pattern or missed the training for some reason. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it also provides more consulting services for the implementation and sustaining it in that feeder.
And are they actually implementing this? Do we have actual?
I think that varies by campus and by grade level, the degree of fidelity, but overall we are seeing some improved attendance and decreases in some disciplinary referrals, which gives us hope that it is making a difference. I think that there are in our schools that are more economically disadvantaged, there are a lot of issues that staff addresses, and this is one, like we were talking a while ago, this is one of many things, and I'm confident with the second year of implementation that they will do an even better job of implementing, but we are seeing decreases in the data.
And I know we've seen decreases in the data. I guess my question would be, are the teachers actually implementing the principles? Are they actually developing, the classroom contracts and that type of thing? So I don't know if you have any data on that, but
We have some TAP form data on that. Is it evident, when they go in? And it's inconsistent in some schools and consistent in others. I think we still have work to do.
Okay, so we just need to get buy-in from the leadership, or how do we, I just hate to spend money on something if we're not actually going to do it.
I think they are implementing it, Ms. James. I think that the students have a lot of instructional gaps, and we just have to keep working with teachers to manage their content and their classroom management. And it's a paradigm shift, because it kind of feeds into some of the other disciplinary philosophies that we've discussed recently. And as we look at restorative discipline and we look at how we handle some of our attendance, it's not you did X, so Y will happen. It's really building relationships and agreeing about how we will interact in the classroom. And we also need to have the foundation piece is in the less structured settings, the cafeterias, the hallways, and so forth. And I was visiting with someone recently who said that most of the referrals that they were seeing on this particular campus were not coming from the classroom, but from the less structured areas. So that's an improvement and gives us an area where, okay, now we need to focus on foundations.
All right, thank you. Do you have additional questions, Mrs. Tassan?
So I had a similar question to Ms. James. I guess, are teachers buying into it? How much support are they getting at the campus level from principals and administrators in implementing these strategies at the classroom level?
I think teachers are buying in. I think we have some teacher mobility in some of our schools that are more at risk. And so it's difficult to get the momentum when you have new people coming in and they have not been trained. Because the beauty of having a feeder pattern or a whole school trained is when I go from classroom to classroom, there's that same expectation. Things are done the same way. And as we have more change, that disrupts that. So that's why we want to train these. I think the principals and the teachers do buy in. And it's just, we just need another year of implementation, and we need support, and we need to train the teachers who are coming in. With another year, I think we'll also have a strong team of what they call champions, which is like the support team on the campuses to help keep things going.
So I've heard really good things about capturing kids' hearts, so I don't
doubt it works.
I don't doubt the program at all. But my other question was, you talked about the restorative discipline and some of the 40 things we talked about when, So how does this tie into our strategy regarding discipline? And is it, I know we're just doing it at this feeder pattern, but how does this tie into that, within that feeder pattern, what's being used, what's not being used? It's a kind of another program we're trying to weave into our overall strategy regarding discipline. So just how does it fit?
Well, CHAMPS and Foundations is our positive behavior support.
Right.
And that gives us clarity on how we set up classrooms and what we do and so forth. And that's the CHAMPS and Foundations piece. And that has to be implemented with fidelity also. The Capturing Kids' Hearts is more about how we relate, how we interact, the relationships we have. That old adage, they don't care what you know till they know that you care. Mm-hmm. And I think, it's very aptly titled Capturing Kids' Hearts, because that is what it is. It's all about the relationships and respect. With restorative discipline, it really pertains more with students who CHAMPS and Foundations and Capturing Kids' Hearts. You have that contingency out here that they're a little tougher to reach. And as we look at some of those children who don't have good attendance, who might end up in one of our alternative settings more than one time. Those are the kids that we need to focus on trying to get to root causes and have someone mentor and be in their corner, because it doesn't always work to just have a consequence. Sometimes we have to determine what's the cause and work on a solution.
Yeah.
So each of those has a different component to try to wrap the whole child.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So, and I know I sound like a broken record with this, but I really would like to see us pulling in some of our community organizations and our community supports, and how they can, you know, support us and support our kids and be woven into some of these things that we're doing.
Starting that this week. Agree with you.
All right. Our next item then is the data cabling. Do we have any questions about cabling or where we want it to go? I need it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving on then to the foundation and brickwork at Ridgemont Elementary School. Okay, do we have any questions about this? All right, moving on then to relocating the portable buildings. Mike Ellis. Mr. Rosenthal has a question.
We're adding a portable to Dulles Middle School.
Yes, sir, I believe, excuse me, that's a result of some of the feeder pattern alignment. We're pushing more students
Right,
towards
from
the center.
Barrington area.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
But I just didn't remember that going over capacity.
Let's see, down here on Dulles, 13 new teachers was the the justification there.
Okay. I just remember the capacity numbers, and I don't think we were over 100%. So I was just surprised to see that one on the list.
It could be,
and I could just not be remembering correctly, but
we'll check that out. It could be number of actual teaching spaces for
Yeah.
those additional teachers.
Okay.
We can check that out.
Mrs. Bailey.
On Settlers Way, for portables, is that just because we're trying to keep our grade, K through 5 grades at capped? I guess I'm just surprised to see the 4 at Settlers Way. Is that the reason why?
To maintain our staffing guidelines with the numbers that we're going to have at Settlers Way, we need to have 6 teachers over there above and beyond what we're
That's a
planning
lot.
before. Mm-hmm.
And that's all from Riverstone?
I mean, I think that's kind of the overflow.
That's for 47 then. Wow. Okay. And then the floating teachers, can somebody tell me what's the floating teachers?
Travis.
That was my language, and it could be traveling teachers. Traveling.
Rafts or?
I apologize. That was my language. I think it probably should have been traveling teachers. I apologize.
Not floating teachers.
I'd like to go see that.
They get in the bayou there behind Travis and float.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Do we have additional questions about? All right. The next one is the student transportation services. And we did go over this a little bit. Do we have any other questions about it? when you talk about vacancy, about 50 vacancies, Mr. Cleaver, are they all at one bus barn, or are they scattered, or?
I'm going to have to ask Michael that. I think they're at both terminals. I think primarily, there's Michael, before I speculate.
That's very wise.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Brassfield.
Thank you. We have about 5 openings over at Hodges Bend at the current time, and we have about 42, I believe, as of today at Lake Olympia, vacant positions.
Wow, that's quite a difference.
It is.
This must be nicer to work over at Hodges Bend.
I think it's okay to be at Lake Olympia.
All right, well, that's interesting.
We have hardworking people there, and they really are. We have to give credit to the teachers. They're doing and the campuses. They're really tolerating a lot of things just to help us out. We could not do that without their assistance and their help.
Okay. So when I looked at this, I noticed that we're talking about 72 additional bus routes. But then at the bottom, we're budgeting for 90 bus routes, which seemed like significant difference.
The reason why we're doing that is just I'm hoping that we're not contracting for 90. Is if we cannot hire enough of our drivers on our own, if we can't fill enough of our routes on our own, then this would give us the latitude to contract with them for up to 90 routes. 72 routes is what needs to be added to accommodate the grandfather routes. But as you know, right now, I mean, we're 50 short in terms of the drivers, and so we're going to need to step up our efforts to be able to hire the vacancies that we have. And if we're able to do all that, then we wouldn't need to go to this extent. One of our concerns, I mean, there's a lot of issues going on with transportation, the commercial driver's license, the CDLs. The ability to get those is going to be restricted in the future because of some issues going on the state level, and so we may not be able to fill our spots, and maybe the outside provider will be able to. But again, this just is if we get to that extent. But the maximum, if you have 72 routes, the highest number of buses you would need, based on those ratios and all that were in the cost matrix, would be up to 90 buses. So that's where I came up with that.
And so would this be organized in such a way that this contractor would work on a certain section of routes or certain geographic area or something like that? Or
we would like to propose a geographical area so that it would be similar to a third location like we have Hodges Bend serving about 4 campuses. We'll have Lake Olympia serving a central core, and then if we can get something in another geographical area, maybe Hightower, Ridgepoint, Willow Ridge, or Missouri City in that area, 50 routes in that area would isolate it and reduce deadhead and reduce time on buses for all the kids. Strategically, that's what we would like to do.
Okay. So even though we're costing it out like it's the grandfathering, it's really actually what it's going to look like in reality is a certain section of the routes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Mr. Birdie.
So we can expect until the grandfathering is done to have an additional 72 routes every year. And then once the grandfathering is phased out, we'll go back to what we have now, or how's that going to work?
No, I mean, that's true unless we change the bell schedules. If we change the bell schedules, that could have an impact on the number of routes we have.
So the grandfathering's costing us, I mean, you said not to exceed 5.4, but roughly $5 million a year for the grandfathering.
4.5 is what I'm estimating based on the routes that I think we'll be covering and all. So this is we could potentially be paying this vendor that much, but then we wouldn't have as many of our own routes. And right now we have a lot of unfilled positions.
So I mean, we don't. But in the future, when we do change the bell schedule, is the goal to eliminate routes or to add or maintain, or how does
it would be a significant reduction in the number of routes. Significant.
Possibly to the tune of saving $5 million, maybe, or
probably closer to 4.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions on this? All right. Our next item is diesel and gasoline fuel. Questions on that?
Do we keep this in storage somewhere physically, or is it basically buying options on it, or how's that work?
Sir, can you repeat your question?
Do we physically hold, when we buy this fuel, are we physically holding it, or is it the right or the option to purchase at a specific price?
I'm not sure what.
I mean, we don't buy all the fuel at once, right? I mean, we have the option to purchase it, and then as we get low, then we call the vendor, and then they fill up.
It's a staggered delivery, Mr.
Mr. Fazackerly, could you use a microphone so that we can record this for the
So we have fuel locations at the bus barns as well as the facilities building over on Murphy Road. So when fuel is needed, when those tanks run low and fuel is needed, then the trucks come and fill it up, just like it would at a gas station.
And we're just guaranteed a specific price? Is that how that works? So,
Well,
I mean,
the price is indexed to the OPES index.
okay.
So, you know, as the index floats, the price will float a little bit.
So right now, when fuel prices are low, we can't buy $2 or $3 million worth of fuel, and
No, sir, we can't. We don't have any place to put it.
I know I know airlines have some type of a similar situation like that, where it's just basically you're buying fuel for the future.
Right, you're buying futures.
I figured if an airline could do it, why can't we? If we're
Our volume isn't to the extent of being able to be in the futures market, but I'm not aware of any districts that are doing that.
I was going to ask has there ever been any talks about maybe gathering a co-op to do that with the HISD, or, I mean, where we could.
Region 4 actually had a co-op at one point. I don't know if it's still active, if it was successful or not, but we could certainly check into that.
Not that I spent a lot of time on it, I was just curious if that was.
No, it was a futures kind of, I don't know the exact terminology, but Region 4 had a structure where you could pay it out in the futures market like that.
That's why Southwest Airlines is still in business, so.
Yeah, if we could have locked that in, a few months ago. That's too bad.
You mentioned HISD, Mr. Burdine, and they at one time had an interlocal with the city of Houston for fuel, and also Metro was in on that. So that's another thing that we could investigate, is interlocals with other governmental agencies in the area.
I have a question.
Mr.
Question or maybe a comment, more like, what kind of system we have in place? Did you say we buy option, then we buy the fuel as and when we need it, or how is the pricing what procedure we have to make sure we are getting the best price based on the current circumstances?
We currently we get 3 quotes each week, and we actually purchase fuel every single week. So for example, at Lake Olympia, we have 2 10,000-gallon tanks, and we refuel those each week. Hodges Bend has 1 10,000-gallon tank, and we refuel that every 4 days.
So you're saying we have 3 vendors send you quote, and whoever give you the best price you buy, that's what?
Correct. And there's one, I think we actually go out to bid to get the best price, but we still check those prices.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brassfield. Our next purchasing item is automobile and truck tires. I think Mr. Rosenthal's polar bear has a question. All right. How about office supplies, copy paper, and toner? Do we have a question? I like the comment here that this is an area of expense leakage. I don't know who wrote that, but that was
I
good.
wrote that. It's a better word than scheme.
No, we're not all politically correct all the time.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
I appreciate that. All right. Any questions about this? Next is beverage vending machines. No cost to the district because we're going to make some money on this. Any questions about that?
Yes.
I do have maybe a question. So we do manage vending machines in our campuses?
Yes.
Is that for a profit?
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, why can't, do we include other than sodas, other beverages like plain water or something healthy?
We're restricted to having vending machines that have healthy items that students have access to. A lot of the vending machines that have the sodas and such are in the teacher break rooms and other things like that. And so those are the ones that that we certainly make a profit on.
So you're saying they don't have the kids don't have access to those vending machines?
Not the ones in the teacher lounge. I mean, I
Okay.
guess they do if they want to break the rules and give it a
So
shot. But
still we sell. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't believe we should have vending machines in where kids have access to.
no, I mean they don't unless they're breaking the rules.
Okay, thank you.
I mean we're precluded by the state TDA rules for them to have access to them. I mean before the major changes in 2004, this used to be a major money maker for large districts.
And also, state regulation is one thing, but we could create our own in-house policies about this. If we decide not to have soda machines in the areas where, I mean, cafeteria and that kind of places where kids have access to, we decide not to put there, we could do that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Rice, sorry. Did you have a question? All right. Then we'll move on.
I think our teachers should be able to have a Dr. Pepper if they want a Dr. Pepper. I think we should stay out of the private lives of our teachers and what they drink.
Mr. Spears will have a really hard time doing his job.
Here we are making it available to the teachers right here.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, next is snacks, beverages, and related items. Questions on that? Next is cash and non-cash donations. Thank you to the United Way. Anything on this? Next is international student travel. The first item is Clements High School theater students going to Edinburgh, Scotland. Questions about this? Next is Clements High School German-American Partnership Program, doing an exchange program, traveling to different parts of Germany. Any questions about this one? All right, and last travel related is a student and a teacher or a staff member, teacher traveling to the Bahamas for the Jason project. Jay?
You don't know a lot of things about me.
We need to spend more time together, folks.
That was accompanied by board members, right?
Sure.
Done on it. I know.
We're going to study global warming.
Count me in.
Well, we'll study warming anyway. It'll be warm. All right. Next, any questions about that? I guess not, so let's move on. Next is the minutes. Do we have any questions or corrections for Mrs. Kaiser on the minutes? Hearing none, then our last item.
1 minute.
I'm trying. Do we have any audience items?
No, Mrs. James, we do not.
We do not have any audience items, so we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Rice and a second by Mrs. Bailey. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
9:59 p.m.